Hi folks, welcome back to the Tabletop's Edge. Today I just have a little update for you on my current Atlantic Wall GOSS project. As I mentioned previously, after a couple years of on again, off again, aborted attempts to get into GOSS, I've finally committed to learning this system no matter what it takes. And to do so, I have chosen to use the campaign scenario from Atlantic Wall, which I think is probably the biggest, longest scenario of all of the GOSS games that have been yet published. So why do that instead of trying some of the introductory scenarios? Well, I guess introductory scenarios have never really been my cup of tea. No matter what the game is, whether it's World in Flames or OCS, I've always just jumped into the deep end feet first, and it's either sink or swim. There's something about introductory scenarios that I really find hard to kind of connect with, and really just prefer seeing the whole system rather than just the bits and pieces that introductory scenarios usually offer you. So here I am, about to wade into an enormous campaign here while simultaneously attempting to learn and master the actual rules to one of the most complicated game systems out there today. Now, this series is not meant to be a tutorial. In fact, there is a channel, Monster on My Table, that has just begun uploading an excellent series of GOSS tutorial videos using Atlantic Wall, coincidentally, and I highly recommend you go check out his videos. He's only got about 6, maybe 7 videos uploaded to date, but it's an ongoing process. The production quality is excellent. The graphics are fantastic. Everything is very clear, very easy to follow, and he takes you through step by step, explaining every little detail that you will need in order to learn GOSS, but it's not as if he's sitting there just merely reading the rule book. I can't recommend his videos highly enough, especially if you are interested in perhaps learning GOSS, learning what it's about, or if you're struggling, mastering the rules themselves. I think if you watch his series of videos, by the time his series is done, I would be willing to say that if you have never played GOSS before, if you've never even looked at the rule book, just by watching his videos, you would be able to sit down and play, certainly Atlantic Wall, without ever having to crack a GOSS rulebook, and that's actually quite an achievement. So I will put a link to his channel in the description below. My series is also not going to be a detailed playthrough like I did with last Blitzkrieg. Coincidentally, Nathan over at Wise Guy History has begun uploading just that, a kind of a detailed playthrough of his efforts to learn GOSS, but he's using the introductory scenario from Vox am Rhein. And Wise Guy History does some great stuff. Again, I highly recommend his channel, and I also recommend these GOSS videos that he's working on currently. I, for one, have found it fascinating to kind of compare his experience with my experience, as we're both trying to get into GOSS at roughly the same time. I think he does a great job of showing you in detail the kind of issues and problems that you may run into as you're trying to learn this rather complicated series. So if this series isn't a tutorial and it's not a playthrough, then what exactly is it? Well, I guess if I were to try to describe it succinctly, I would probably say it's a review of GOSS and Atlantic Wall in real time. And what I mean by that is most reviews, the reviewer will learn the game and will play the game to the point where they have enough experience with it to form an intelligent opinion on the qualities and merits of the game, and then do the review. This, however, is going to be me playing through the game, posting updates periodically, not even necessarily regularly at certain points throughout the turns or what have you. It'd just be when I come across something that I think is interesting or something that I want to kind of highlight to you out there, I will upload a video with my thoughts on the system. And of course, in the course of these videos, you'll also be getting my opinions on GOSS in general, Atlantic Wall specifically, things like elements of the game that I like, stuff that I don't like about the game, how the game plays, what I think of the turns, all that kind of stuff. So at the end of the series, what you'll probably have is a rather extended review ultimately, and I hope to answer some questions about GOSS in the process. Primary among those is GOSS worth it? Meaning, is the effort required to learn the game, which is very substantial, and probably to play the game, which I'm going to find out just how much effort it does take to actually play the system as opposed to merely trying to learn the system. Is that effort, do you get an experience that is fun enough and engaging enough to warrant all of that effort? Or are you better off finding a different operational level system that you can play that doesn't require as much investment in time, energy, and effort and still get the same kind of enjoyable experience from? So that's one of the big questions that I'm hoping to answer throughout this. And then also, as I go through the series and bring up certain points, maybe those of you who have been scared away from GOSS for whatever reason, or maybe are just kind of curious about the system, will get a chance to see at least some of the elements up close and firsthand. And again, you'll get a good look at Atlantic Wall, and hopefully I'll be able to show you enough to give you an idea at least of how the game plays out, what the campaign looks like, how historical it is, issues that may arise, and so forth. So with all that out of the way, let's actually take a look at what's happened so far. I have just begun play of the game, and the campaign scenario begins with the airborne landings and the amphibious landings on the morning and early hours of June 6th. Now, there are a lot of special rules, and I hate to call them special rules because these aren't rules that are exceptions to the standard rules that you have to remember and keep in mind, like most special rules are. The designers have decided, because of the uniqueness of each of the events, the paradrops and the amphibious landings, and the fact that they're essentially one-time events in the game, they've sort of carved them out of the regular GOSS game turn sequence of play, and the rules for that matter. So, for instance, the movement rules are different, the combat is handled differently, and there are some rules that apply just to these activities. And the game refers to them as modules. So there's an airborne module and an amphibious landing module. And you start off and you basically play through the airborne module, which then leads you into the amphibious module. You will play that. They're two kind of self-contained procedures, I guess, for lack of a better word. But I have found when I tried the airborne module about 2 years ago in one of my attempts to learn GOSS, I did not get all the way through the module, but what I did see, I kind of remember enjoying and thinking it was pretty fun. So I was curious to see if my memories were correct, and this holds up a second time through when I have a much better understanding of the GOSS system than I did back then. And I am happy to report that so far, first impressions are extremely positive. I just want to show you something at the point that I'm at now before continuing on and talk about a couple of things. So let's go take a look at the actual board itself, and I'll kind of explain what I mean here. What we're looking at here is the Atlantic Wall Airborne display, and this lays out all 3 airborne divisions that will be dropping on the 6th of June. You've got the British 6th Airborne Division up top here, and then the US 82nd and 101st Divisions down below. So during game setup, you will actually set up all of the unit counters for these divisions on this display, and then as part of the airborne module at the beginning of the game, you will then pull off the units as you resolve the drops. Now, GOSS is a battalion level series, but the parachute battalions are actually broken down into their constituent companies. So each of the battalion markers is going to stay on this display until and unless one or more or two or more of the companies can get together and reorganize themselves back into the battalion counter. That's why the parachute infantry battalions are still on the display. It's the actual company counters that you will be placing on the map as part of the airdrop. And we've got a couple of battalions down here you see in what are called extended scatter boxes. This is a track for units whose drop was so far off the mark or so widely scattered that it is going to take them several game turns, and keep in mind each game turn is roughly half a day, several game turns to actually get to the point where they have enough soldiers from the company to form an actual unit on the map at the drop zone. But I'm glad I've got one here so I can talk about the company counters specifically. What we have here is, I think that's H Company, 3rd of the 505th from the 82nd Airborne. On the front side you see it's simply a one-step company counter. On the back, however, it has this sort of generic parachute symbol. When it's on when it's face down like this, it's considered what they call a fog of war unit. And that's because when you go to resolve the paradrops, you are going to take all of the company counters that are associated with a particular drop zone, and you can see each division has 3 or 4 drop zones that you will be placing on the map, and then you will resolve the drop for, in the case of the 101st, it's pretty much each regiment has its own drop zone, and then there is a main drop zone for the divisional headquarters and heavier support units. So you'll take all 9 of these company counters and you'll throw them into an opaque container like a draw cup, and you will also be adding a randomly determined number of these dummy counters, which are dummy on the front, and when you turn them over are indistinguishable from the actual parachute companies on the back. You will randomly draw these counters out of the cup when you are placing them on the map and then scattering them, and you will not know which units on the map are dummy counters and which ones are actual units until they can reach a friendly drop zone location and successfully regroup. And it's important to know that it's not just the German player who doesn't know which units are which, but the American player or the Commonwealth player does not know either. So it's, like I said, it's these rules in this airborne module, I think, are clearly the best I've seen for operational level games as far as airdrops go. They may be, they certainly are among the best. They may be the best I've seen for airdrop rules in any war game at any scale. The only other rules I can think of regarding airdrops that I find as fun and engaging as this are the rules found in The Greatest Day of the Grand Tactical Series by MMP. I think the rules in The Greatest Day do an excellent job as well. But again, different scale. So for first impressions of Atlantic Wall, I would say these rules are giving me an excellent first impression. If the rest of GOSS is this much fun and this interesting and gives you the same sort of feeling of historical accuracy, then GOSS is absolutely worth every dollar. But that remains to be seen. What we do know for now is that I'm thoroughly enjoying just the paradrop process. I'm still not all the way through the airborne module. In fact, I'm very early on in the airborne module. I have just completed the paradrops themselves. As a matter of fact, not even the glider units have landed yet. And the module itself consists of about 11 steps. This includes a couple of Allied movement and combat steps, as well as a couple of German movement and combat steps. And that's in addition to just getting the units on the map and resolving the airborne drops. So let's see what this looks like actually on the map, and hopefully it'll start to make a little more sense to you. Before we go, though, I just did want to point out that the game and the Airborne module starts off just like the historical campaign game did, with the British glider assault on Pegasus Bridge by, I think it was D Company of the 2nd Ox and Bucks Light Infantry. They have a glider counter representing them, and let's go see, we'll talk a little bit about how that works in Atlantic Wall and GOSS. Here is D Company on the map in the hex that contains both the Pegasus Bridge over the Orne Canal as well as the bridge over the Orne River just to the east of it. So both bridges are in the same hex. And the rules state that the glider company will automatically land in the hex, so there's no scattering. You're guaranteed to get the unit into the hex. What you will do after placing the unit in the hex is you're going to roll a die, and GOSS uses 10-sided dice for basically for everything. You'll either be rolling 1 or 2 10-sided dice, and they use the 2-sided dice quite often as a percentile dice rather than an actual roll 2 dice and add them together. We'll see that as we get into the regular GOSS turns and how combat works. But in this case, you simply roll 1 10-sided die, and the results in GOSS for everything on the dice are read as being results from 0 to 9, not 1 to 10. So the 0 on a GOSS die is not a 10, it's a 0, and that's going to be something to keep in mind as we go through the game here. But you're going to roll that die, and if you get an 8 or less, Pegasus Bridge is considered successfully captured intact, and the company suffers no losses. If you roll a 9, the company is going to be reduced. It's going to take basically a hit, if you will, which would normally eliminate a 1-step unit. However, some single-step units have what they call a 0-step side to them. That's indicated by the white circle. So you notice the white circle there in the background compared to the white stripe. Units that have a white horizontal stripe in GOSS, that signifies that it is a single-step or a company-sized unit. So if you roll the 9, you're going to take a loss, and then the German player rolls 1 d10, and if they roll a 0 to 4, the bridge is destroyed. After rolling for the Pegasus Bridge, you will then check for the other bridge over the Orne River, and it's the same process. Roll a die, 8 or less, no problem, bridge is captured intact with no losses. If you roll a 9, you're going to be reduced. If you are already on your 0-step side here, the unit is eliminated, and then the German player will roll with a 50% chance to blow that bridge. So if I've done my math correctly, and I was not a math major in college at all, it looks like you have a 95% chance of the bridges, of each bridge being intact, and again a 90% chance to capture each of the bridges with no losses. So in this particular playthrough, things went as expected, and the company was able to land and grab both bridges. After you resolve the Pegasus Bridge attack, the next thing you need to do is resolve the placement of the drop zone markers. And I'll pull back a little bit here, and you can see there's the 6th Airborne Division has 3 drop zones. They have drop zone K located here, drop zone N here, and drop zone V up here by Varaville. Now, the rules state you're going to place those markers in an assigned hex, which is given on the Airborne display. However, you then have to determine if that drop zone is going to scatter. The main drop zones will never physically scatter. They will always be in the target hex. The other drop zones in the division, however, may scatter up to 1 hex from where they are supposed to be. And that's important. You're going to roll for the main division landings as well as the other subsidiary drop zones because what you roll on the scatter roll is going to impact the I'm going to say the drop zone status is what they call. The rules are going to assign a letter from A to E, with A being the best and E being the worst, most widely scattered status you can have for the drop zone. And then when it comes to resolving each individual unit's landing or paradrop, you were going to roll based and consult the chart based on the drop zone status being at A, B, C, D, or E. Now, the British in this particular drop that I just resolved, as you can see, they are kind of scattered all over the place. They even have, they've got this poor unit, which is basically landed in the marshy area in between the canal and the river. They're kind of in a bad spot. We've got guys that landed to the west of the canal, and others are really just kind of scattered all over the place here. So I would say this drop appears to be worse than the historical drop, but we'll see how that plays out. Let's take a look at the American divisions, though. Here we are out west, where the 101st and 82nd have done their drops. You can see Utah Beach is located right here. And as you can see, there are U.S. fog of war paratroop counters kind of all over the area. Although I will say that I think the Americans ended up having a better drop than they did historically, and it's been a couple of years, but I want to say this was a better drop than the last time I did this when I tried to learn GOSS before. What you're looking at is down here you have a couple of the, actually 3 of the 101st Airborne Division's drop zones are located in these 2 hexes. The 4th one, drop zone A, is located further here to the north, and as you can see, there are a couple of giant stacks of counters on the drop zones, which indicates that the drops for those particular regiments were pretty concentrated and well done. The 101st, I think, is going to be in really good shape as we move through the rest of this airborne landing module, and we'll start to be able to get some things accomplished sooner than maybe, or more effectively certainly, than they did perhaps historically. The lone exception to that was the regiment that dropped on drop zone A up here. I think that was the 502nd Regiment. The drop zone actually scattered. It had a really kind of a not so good status. I think it was a status D out of A through E, and then the individual unit resolution rolls, scatter rolls, were pretty bad. Let's see if I can show you the charts here. You can see up here we have the drop zone scatter table. This is what you use to resolve the drop zone locations. And then depending upon whether you know scattered, scattered 1, or scattered 2, S1, S2, that's going to bring you over to this column. This is where you will roll with modifiers for being adjacent to German units or flak units and the terrain that the drop zone ended up in. It's going to give you your letter indicating your status. And then over here is what you use to resolve the individual unit drops. And the column you use, you can see they're labeled A through E at the top. That's going to give you anything from an NS, meaning no scatter, all the way up to an ES, which is an extended scatter, or an S1 through S6. Now the S1 through S6 will bring you to the actual scatter diagram here, and you can see there are, you use percentile dice to determine which of the hexes on this display the unit will actually land in. So the drop zone is hex is here, located at the center of the display. And then on the chart, if you get an S1, you're looking at the ring immediately adjacent. If you're S2, you're the next ring out, and so on until you get out to S6 here. So it's conceivable that a company could drop up to 6 hexes, which is 6 miles from the actual drop zone. And if the drop zone itself scattered, it could be as far as 7 miles from the intended historical drop zone. And we had that actually happen in at least 1 or 2 instances. Let's say there was an 82nd company dropped way up here, 6 miles north of drop zone T, and they actually landed on top of a German mountain howitzer battery from the 91st Infantry Division. Resolved that process with the end result being that the guys who dropped here, and it may be an actual company, it could be a dummy counter, which would represent maybe a couple of squads of guys perhaps, they did manage to take out the mountain battery. So first blood there to the Americans. But what I really love about this system is, if I kind of pull back here, you can see there's, you talk about a laying down a carpet of airborne troops, that's exactly what this system does. And this is a lot more when I say condensed than I have seen in other cases. A lot of times you will see units scattered all over this area. As it is, there are units, there's the farthest eastern unit dropped here. It's 18 miles across by 17 miles north to south. There are American paratroopers just running all over this area, which I think does a beautiful job of reflecting the chaotic nature of the drops on D-Day. And as the American player, I don't know which of these units are my real companies that I'm going to be able to regroup and then reorganize into the battalions and be able to start doing stuff, and how many of them are going to turn out to be dummies. I have also potentially already suffered some losses. We see here in the units eliminated, these are markers that either landed in all C hex sides. I had one company who scattered so badly from the 101st that it landed off the coast of Utah Beach in the ocean and was eliminated. Most of these landed in marsh hexes and were eliminated. Some of them landed in some woods hexes. The let's see, I think this is the 101st. These four counters were part of the 101st. How many of them are real companies? How many of them are dummies? I don't know, and I won't know until the last of the fog of war markers has been removed from the map. Then we'll flip these over and see which ones are real. These all came from the 502nd Regiment, however. The other 6 up here were from the 82nd Airborne, but these are not as concentrated as the 4 here from 101st. So 502nd Regiment is probably going to be in the worst shape of any of the airborne regiments that have landed so far, but we'll see how the rest of this plays out. Next up, the Americans are going to, or the Allies are going to have a movement segment where I'll be able to move some of these fog of war markers, and they need to get to a drop zone hex in order to allow them to attempt to regroup. And once a fog of war unit is on a drop zone hex, you'll roll 1d10. If you roll low enough, you'll be able to flip it over. If it's an actual parachute company, you can then begin to do whatever you want with it, although you're probably going to want it to find the other 2 companies in the battalion, get together on the drop zone hex so you can combine them into the much more powerful battalion counter. There's still a lot to go here. I haven't, like I said, the glider troops don't even land until after this first Allied movement. The Germans are going to have an opportunity with units that have been activated to move and attack these same fog of war units. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys a look and see what it looks like right after the initial paradrop landing, because again, the rules here, I think, do a fantastic job of reflecting the just the utter chaotic nature of the drop. So I'm excited to see how the rest of this airborne module plays out, and then move on to the amphibious module where we can take a look at the landings. And then only after the amphibious module is complete do we actually get to start playing a normal GOSS game turn. So stay tuned, more to come, but right now first impressions are very, very good. Thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you next time.